All right. So in the previous class, we were discussing about the the entire sector of exports and imports, the external sector, and we stopped at where did we stop yesterday? Trends. Okay, so within that, I want you to focus on this pharma sector transformation from 1995. Here in this context, I want you to know the patents process, the Patents Act. See, there is something that you need to know here, something called the process patent. Imagine there is a drug. That drug has a certain underlying molecule. If you alter the state of that molecule and re-engineer it through a different process, companies can claim a patent for that new process also. Imagine a situation where you try to do trial and error, go through multiple failures and create a molecule that will act as a drug. So one company will come back and say, I will take the same drug, break it down into different parts, see how it will work when you reverse engineer it and establish a process, slightly change it, apply for a new patent and make same money. Do you think it's fair? This is what Patent Act is not recognizing. Process patent will become illegal when the respective national governments say that, we should stop this. This is exactly what transformed the pharma sector in our country. Take a look at this. The pharmaceutical sector, which had expanded under the process patent regime of the 1970 Act. So you can get a question in prelims. In India, process patent is legal. If they say that, read this. It faced a sudden change in its operating environment when TRIPS compliant product patent regime took off in 1995. So World Trade Organization came forward and said that, intellectual property is supposed to be protected. Just by saying that I will change a bit of this process and create a new molecule, it's unfair. So let's not do that. This part is like a landmark shift in the pharma sector, and we adapted well. So this shift challenged the very foundation of India's competitive advantage called reverse engineering. We were at that point of time pioneers in this game. From 95, we wanted to take that shock, take that as a challenge and move forward. Why am I comparing pharma here? The services sector is at an inflection point due to AI. So if we have to learn certain lessons from the pharma shock and apply that lessons in the IT sector or in general the services sector, maybe we can adapt quicker. See, sometimes the structural shifts in an economy are so quick and so radical that we have no other option but to adapt. If you like it or you don't like it, it doesn't matter. The world is fundamentally altered with AI coming into the picture. I'll give you a simple situation. Till now, like we were speaking, 50 to 60 rupees out of every 100 rupees that India is earning came from the services sector. Unlike most countries in the world, exports, especially in the services sector, drove Indian economy. And if you take a look at that conventional model of any economic growth story of any country, agriculture, manufacturing, services, India sector is taking a hit? No. Even this will get automated at many levels. Where are we heading towards? In this context, you have to understand you shouldn't be looking at entire IT sector as a monolith. Meaning that you shouldn't think that entire IT sector will be vanishing. If that is the case, every service-driven economy in the world, philanthropic activities, which are perceived as philanthropic activities, there is an activist called Vandana Shiva. I don't know how many of you know that person. So she claims that the biodiversity seed banks which are supposed to conserve this biodiversity are actually hijacked by this philanthropic activities. Why am I talking about all of this when I started with pharma? You might be wondering. Let me come back to the same story. When there is a global intervention, you will notice same patterns repeating. Sectors might change. The patterns emerge again and again. When there is a global level, some governance change, just like how we see in the pharma sector, where globalization made it possible for commercialization of health. And as a result, you will see many companies growing very unequally. Of course, it offered some opportunities for Indian companies too, and we saw some wage growth. Same way, you can see two sides of the coin. On one side, where you see the darker side of the pharma industry and claim that everything is bad. The other side is you will see the number of jobs that are rising. Both might be equally true. But let's focus on the positive side. Every crisis offers an opportunity. And we got an opportunity in 95 when this crisis popped up. Till then we were only reliant on reverse engineering, which forced us to adapt. So take a look at the nature of the TRIPS shock. Let me read it very slowly. I am taking this as a case study. The process patent regime enabled Indian firms to legally replicate patented drugs by developing alternative production pathways. Is this clear? What was happening before? We took the drug, strip it down, break it down the process, change something, rebuild, make money. That fundamentally changed after the TRIPS came into the picture. However, TRIPS mandated a 20-year product patent regime, thus eliminating the reverse engineering step. So essentially, companies are now forced to adapt. This could be characterized as a deep institutional disruption. Keywords again, deep institutional disruption. If you want to present a governance change, either at a, or I would rather say policy change, either at a global, state level, national level, wherever, which disrupts the business as usual approach, you can use the word deep institutional disruption. And the intensity is highest when it happens at a global level, and India is a signatory for that convention. So what did we do? We were working on internal capabilities. So the companies tried to build their own R&D units. We tried to create new drug delivery systems. Industry-wide R&D spending increased. For example, from 1994 till 2019, you will see such significant increase in the R&D cost. Let's say, for example, in 94, if they were spending only 120 crores, you're saying 209 billion rupees. Much more. So R&D cost got almost 10x, 20x. So when you are increasing your capability, there will be a new knowledge, new body of knowledge. And that new body of knowledge is commodified in new companies, which created alternative revenue streams. So what is the learning here? You have to spend on R&D, especially in a sector that is dependent on the technical prowess. What is the learning for AI today? See, you are saying that fundamentally repetitive tasks are taken away, but still there is some high value potential for some jobs. Whether it will create equally high number of jobs or not, it's not clear yet. Definitely, it has a potential to position India as the AI skill force capital of the world, because that's what we were historically doing, services sector. So instead of worrying about whether we can produce same number of jobs or not, see what is the possibility of learning that skill set as quickly as possible. This is the lesson number 1 from the pharma story. Second one, market diversification as a structural hedge. Now here, instead of saying market diversification, here there is a fundamental shift in the product itself. What is the business as usual approach in IT sector? We are offering services. Let's say, I'll give you an example. You want to do a coding job. If you did not have AI, traditional business model of an IT company would be take up a project with a client. There is an onshore, like let's say for example, there's a client in US. In US, there is a company, let's say an Indian company like TCS, which has its direct presence in, let's say, California or someplace. Will be directly dealing with the client. According to the labor laws of that country, you will have to pay a per hour wage rate. That's like $10 per hour, 20, 100, whatever may be the number, you have to pay that rate. Okay. So you will be billed per hour according to that project, which is very expensive. Take out a part of that work, delegate it to an economy like India, train 10 people at fraction of a cost. That arbitrage or the difference in the money is how IT companies made money. You charge $60 and offer $6 here. The rest is margin. This is how IT sector grew in India. But that part is now changing because you neither need the people here nor there. The work that is done by 5 people there with a team of 50 is replaced by 1 person handling an AI agent. You just have to pay the subscription cost of that service. So what would cost you $2,000, $20,000 per month is now happening at $20 per month. Or let's say $200 per month. This is a disruption of a different kind. You can't say, don't depend on US market alone, we will go to UK. There also you will face the same challenge. Go to Africa, China, anywhere, you will face the same challenge. So you cannot say diversification of the markets is the solution for AI. We need a product diversification, not market diversification. AI has many use cases. And still, establishing that workflows can again be reconfigured. Efficiency is the hallmark of human beings. Whether you like it or not, if everybody of you is using AI, what is the differentiator for you? Did you ever think, see, everybody is worried that, or I would rather say, everybody is excited that you now have AI. You have access to information. You already have access to information. Do you have access to insights? To an extent, yes. If you have those insights, so will the other person. What is the differentiator here? What is that skill? At least let's keep our discussion relevant to the UPSC preparation so that you make more, relate to this more. That's why I'm asking this question. What is the difference between your prompt and your competitor's prompt? Depth. The ability to understand the larger picture and link it to the specific context. The interconnections and the specific problem statement and your own shortcoming. Self-awareness is not that easy, first of all. Second step, having the larger picture takes time. When you have instant gratification through AI models, focusing on the larger picture is very boring. It requires consistency. So when hard skills are taken away, what are the soft skills that will give you the technological edge? Not the technological edge, but the human edge. If artificial intelligence can do so much, what can natural intelligence do? If you're competing with AI, it will any day outsmart you. What is the depth that we are talking about? So any industry, if this is UPSC industry and you're talking about gaining that advantage, if you have that advantage and you're excited about it, so will the other person. Is that insight translating into a learning, a systematic learning, and getting systematized in your thought? That's the bigger requirement, and it is not going to come without your effort. You know, with your effort, I'm saying there is a possibility that you will fail. Without your effort, there is a possibility that you will definitely fail. Same is the case with AI, same is the case with every industry, and same is the case for even pharma. At that point of time, everybody started writing of the pharma story saying that India's game is over. And today, we are considered the generic capital of the world. That's not enough. Of course, it's not enough. China, which produces the active pharmaceutical ingredients, the raw materials which are required for producing this final tablets, as you can say. It's the pioneer in that manufacturing. There is something called GMP, good manufacturing practices. If India imposes this good manufacturing practices stringently, a lot of the pharma companies and their units would be shut down. And as a result of this, you don't have a good quality check. Only a few firms that maintain this GMP actually find markets in UK, US, which is making that money. What if we ramp up the production and also the QC? It would require some initial cost and also governance changes and also policy support. If these steps are taken, we saw the revival of a sector that was written off in the Indian economic history. Take a look at this keyword, collaborative and risk sharing innovation models. The biggest complaint that you say that why R&D doesn't happen in India is there's no incentive for a company to invest. My fundamental problem with that whole idea is, why do you expect one country or one company for the entire country to invest in that sector? Today, the biggest complaint of AI or the players in AI is that we don't have enough compute power. Namely, we don't have enough number of GPUs. There is a beauty in the step taken by our country. We now have a shared infrastructure where the government is saying, boss, don't worry about it. We will give you GPUs. You just pay some nominal rent and carry out your AI based experiments. This shared infrastructure model can be termed as collaborative and risk sharing innovation models. This is cited as a case study for Indian growth story and any challenge that we have to overcome. See, I refuse to believe that India can't overcome its challenges provided we all come together. The problem of our country is lack of self-confidence. Believing in our own capabilities. We are divided in so many ways. If we can collaborate, see a win-win scenario through this phase, and I would like to quote a famous saying by an IAS officer who quoted that Indian governance is like a sleeping elephant. Once it starts waking up and starts running, it's difficult to catch up. And it's very scary too. Democracy is slow. But if we can follow this collaborative and risk-sharing innovation models, it's quite possible that we revive all the sectors. The lesson that you have to learn here is not just for prelims. This is for mains, this is for essay, the thought process, even for ethics. What is the strength in collaboration? You might have a strength, other person might have a different strength. Come together, you work as a team and grow. When we are talking about collaborative strength, it is not just one company. It is a group of companies coming together as a sector, collaborating with the government. researchers, colleges, so that there is a sectoral transformation. And in that scenario, if you need any help from the government side, then ask. It is difficult in a economic structure like ours to expect a single company to transform the entire sector. If that happens, same people would complain that there is a monopoly. Of course there will be a monopoly. If you are taking so much risk, if that risk fails, who will bear that risk? Obviously that company should bear it. And we are not okay to invest money. You are not even allowing the company that is investing money. And you complain that these are people who are investing in the same companies again and again. So either collaborate or accept monopolies. India does not have any other option. Do I make any logical sense? So apply this thought process in any sector that needs a structural transformation. Take this pharma as a case study. Okay. Then strategic mergers and acquisitions for global integration. See, for example, take this example of Novartis or any global giant that collaborates with a Indian company, where after the patent expires and wants to enter into Indian market, they require some element of operational efficiency. You set up a factory, recruit people, carry out the manufacturing, establish the supply chains, have marketing infrastructure in place, which is all a very big headache. Instead, a foreign company will say, boss, I don't want to take this headache. Take my drug, do whatever you want to do with it, maintain the quality, give me some money. If we can allow this backward and forward integrations and make sure India has that operational efficiency, we will expand our global footprint. Now, this point is going to be important for the next discussion on how FDI is behaving in the present scenario. All right, let's see what I'm talking about. The rest of the points are pretty redundant. I would say the same points are repeated. Now, all right, this one point you can see, this paragraph. Services trade. We will talk about the pharma sector and FDI, but before that, one last thing. There is a chapter on the entire services sector. When we are approaching that chapter today, I want you to take a context of this paragraph. Services sector trade remains strong with exports increasing. Ignore the numbers. Imports are also increasing. Services trade surplus amounted to some amount, accounting 61.1% of the merchandise deficit. Do you know what it means? You know the merchandise deficit, right? What do you mean by that? The number of goods that are going out and coming inside. Tangible goods. We import more, send out less. As a result, there is a huge deficit. That deficit needs to be lowered. We already saw the necessity of that in the chapter on monetary policy. On the discussion of current account deficit and inflation control, we saw why it is a national imperative to reduce the deficit. Is that clear? Now, in that context, if we have to narrow down that deficit, how will we do it? As of now, we are doing it through service sector. How much? If let's say 100 is the deficit, out of that 60% surplus, services sector surplus is covering that. So the net is coming down. From 100 it is coming to 40, roughly. Clear? Imagine a scenario where AI disrupts this. The current account deficit will again widen. That's why addressing the principal growth engine is a matter of national urgency. And it's not because the world is fundamentally changing, not that alone. it is also important for Indian economic growth story. Our survey document calls the services sector as the principal growth engine. You might have a question. See, conventionally, you are not going to get questions in mains like this. You won't expect questions on monetary policy in mains. You won't expect questions specifically on different sectors of economy. Primary sector, you will get entire agriculture chapter is there in what do you say, syllabus GS3. Then you also have industrial policy, industries based. So whatever secondary sector discussions are there, you can map it to that industrial growth chapter and infrastructure chapter. But you rarely see a discussion on services, except one major point saying that, we jumped from agriculture to services. That's all. In the last 20 years, in terms of pattern, there's hardly any change in the services sector. Maybe the volume increased, the number of jobs increased, wages, growth rate decreased. But overall, the percentage of contribution to Indian economy has pretty much remained constant. Salaries grew, number of people depending on that sector grew, but as a volume, as a matter of percentage, it has been the same. Now, for the first time, thanks to the AI revolution, that structure is going to be altered forever. Our agriculture sector, underemployed, like overemployed in that sector. Manufacturing, lack of capabilities, lack of investment, and lack of opportunity. Services sector, it's removed now instantly, and you don't know where to go, what to do. You see the challenge of this economy? And that's why the next chapter that is going to come up is going to be significant for that reason. You will see the rise of a different basket of services sector, the new sunrise sectors, which will create the jobs. And the associated primary and secondary sectors. Let's say, for example, if you want to talk about AI as a theme, what does AI require? You require data centers. So a corresponding growth sector would be land. First of all, you need to establish the data centers on a piece of land. Then you need investment, capital sector like banking, which is financing this. That is the next growth sector. So you need, how much ever AI you use, you still need people in the banking sector, which will increase. Then you need power generation, power distribution. In all these areas, you will require additional input. To service that, again, new service sector jobs will come. So-called green tech, energy transition. This AI semiconductors is another manufacturing sector. There is another area there. That semiconductor manufacturing requires a raw material, namely critical minerals. That is one more mines and minerals sector, primary. So don't think that when this present structural change happens, like Indian economy is going to vanish and collapse. Yes, there is going to be a transition. Every technological change has brought that transition. The problem is if we are unwilling to adapt. That's when the larger issue is. Right now, do you think AI is cheap? What makes you think if we increase the number of servers, number of data centers, it will be any cheaper? The economies of scale logic doesn't work for AI because we're already at scale. You open more data centers, it will become efficient, not cheaper. You understand the difference? I'll tell you something. The nature of AI, why am I talking about AI at length? Because that is the theme that you need to understand to make sense of the FDI story, to make sense of the services sector story, and the overall change in the structural economy. So I'm telling this like a story only. Let's understand the nature. When you are talking about the nature of this technology AI, how is it different from the rest of the technologies? Fast and efficient. Is that it? Fast and efficient. Okay, let's first list down those adjectives. Can you name any technological innovation in the field of mechanical engineering that is not fast and efficient and is still called a machine or innovation? Most of the machines qualify in this too. They're fast, they're efficient. Bullock cart, car, fast and efficient. Car, bullet train, fast and efficient. Bullet train, flight, fast and efficient. Flight, jet, fast and efficient. Jet, rocket, fast and efficient. There's always a linear evolution of quickness and efficiency. Is that the hallmark of this technology? There must be something else, right? Diverse applications. Ability to replace human intelligence. AI can replace human intelligence. AI can replace selective use of repetitive human intelligence. Human intelligence that is deployed for repetitive tasks. You have to understand the nature of AI. AI is trained on the existing knowledge and workflows till now. So let's say whatever is the training data it got, whatever comes out of that is a probabilistic rearrangement of that new rearrangement of the same thing. So even though it says generative AI, it is not generating a new body of knowledge. It is generating a new probability of the existing knowledge. Clear? So if we replace our intelligence with this, essentially you are saying we are stopping to learn. So collectively, humanity always progressed when we used our faculties, that cognitive ability. So now you are saying that a machine will think for you. A machine will work for you is fine. A machine will think for you will fundamentally take away what makes you human, your ability to think. That is the fundamental nature of the present technology. Technology is never good or bad. Nuclear fission as a principle. You decide. Make an atom bomb, you destroy. Use it to build a nuclear reactor, you will empower people. The decision is again a human mind. Tool is never a problem. The intent is. Today we are at an inflection point where this intent, which was decentralized between many human beings, is now centralized, and we are made to believe that we are incapable of thinking and we are incapable of being better than this. Here I am giving my personal opinion. Till now, whatever are the facts that I discussed, I am just stating them. Here, with my observation and with my insight on how people are using AI, if you use it like your assistant and you have the ability to sit for longer hours and ability to go into a subject at length, in depth, this is your best friend. The minute you lose control and give it away your ability to think, you become its slave. Unfortunately, technology has always made people slaves of it. Because the person who has the ability to get detached from technology is the one who always controls the world. And ironically, the same people who created these technocratic giants are completely detached from the utilities associated with it. A case to the point being, I'll just give you one example. Creator of YouTube does not want kids to use YouTube. Look at the intent then. Like, you can gauge the intent of the creator there. So technology is never good or bad. This line, if you understand, can be deployed in your thought process in essay paper, ethics paper, science and technology, the direction of public policy, everywhere. The same line of thought will also help you eliminate options when the intent is distorted in the policy option. Let's say, for example, which of the following statements signify the shift in government's policy towards AI? Government wants to replace extreme worded statement. Replace human beings with AI. No. Why would they do that? So if they were asking you to do that, you wouldn't be preparing for this exam mugging up history facts. So anyone who thinks, let's say for example, this exam is all about facts, this is probably the best time you should be happy with. It's never going to be just about facts. If you are worried that paper will be based on facts, trust me, it's not going to be. It's only going to be multifaceted. Change the definition of difficult from now on. What is difficult? Difficult means something that we don't understand or comprehend. Right? Today we understand how we can use this. It becomes difficult if you refuse to acknowledge that. The future belongs to those who have the ability to ask right questions, not get the right answers. Answers will come out, but you have the ability to ask the right question. Simply put, prompt engineering. After you get the insight, can you internalize it? Reduce reliance on AI for storing information or don't use your abilities to remember something. Use it for reasoning. Use it for learning. Learning requires a bit of a struggle. You will have to go through the uncomfortable process. And that discomfort is what AI reduces. And this ease should not become a habit, because even the smallest of tasks, there will come a point where what is 2 plus 2? People will come out and let me open ChatGPT and confirm once again. Don't get to that stage. So it requires a skill, both cognitive as well as emotional, which fundamentally alters the concept of education in our country, concept of how services will be offered. Don't you think the services that will be offered in the future are not even invented yet? Because we don't know the structural shift in our economy. With this context, now let's go to the FDI and FPI. See, when you are looking at this trends in FDI, take a look at where money is flowing. Okay, let me ask you a simple funda. Where will money flow if you're an investor? Profits and stability. What gives you profits and stability? Predictability. Would you trade off some element of predictability for more profit? Or are you okay with more volatility and, well, let's say for example, I'll get 10% profit, but I don't know who will be the next president or next prime minister. But you will get 4% profit here. You know who is going to be the leader for the next 5 years. Where would you invest? So this completely tells us human beings are not okay with volatility, whether in their life or in markets. So maximum profit promise is not always good. You have to see if that particular economy has the ability to pay that. Clear? With this logic, look at this map. Trends in global FDI flows. Why is it that you see reduction in Europe? Uncertainty. Why do you see more or less stability in Asia? Why no growth? Because this is supposed to be the Asian growth story. Why? Okay. China. So what? So money should flow somewhere. It should start somewhere and it should flow somewhere. Let's see. Where is the money flowing? North America. Mainly US. Where is it starting? Where is it ending? What is our assumption? When you say a flow, it should have a starting point and an ending point. You are saying that the money is starting somewhere and ending up in US. Essentially, this means, see, our assumption is US is the richest country in the world. So the money will land up in US. Logic also says that an investor would invest in an economy that gives more returns. So are you now telling me that a country which has a growth rate of roughly 3% is much more safer than countries and economies which are offering 7 to 8%? It defies some logic. What is that? One is the Make America Great Again campaign, the tariff trade wars, where American government is forcing the companies to come back. Next is the war situation in Europe, which shook up the European economy. On the top of that, you also have a tariff war with US. And this is the context why India EU trade agreement, trade FTA is going forward. Okay. Now, if India were to attract money, what is the precondition here? Policy certainty. That is what we were discussing. No economy is supposed to be volatile. What creates volatility in Indian markets? Think of this question. You have policy certainty, but still volatility is a possibility because of the very structure of Indian economy. What is that structure? Dependence on fossil fuels or import basket, simply put. Now, is it safe to say that FDI is not coming to India because of our some level of import basket? This is a hypothesis. Because the spillover of the inflation or the spillover of the uncertainty in global markets, if India is exposed to that through imports, that will affect us also. So the global investor is not willing to take a risk in that context. This is one. Second, what is the nature of Indian economy? Service-led, consumption-led growth. Service-led and consumption-led growth. So, I'll tell you in a different way. You are saying that our service trade is very high. Now AI came. Imagine a scenario where software employees are paying up for their EMIs. They're paying their house loan, car loan. They'll go to a restaurant in, let's say, the software hub, where they'll spend at least 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, whatever on a weekend evening. So a F&B industry player is dependent on that. Let's say you go in a cab, Ola, Uber is servicing that transport. You are staying in a rented apartment, 50, 60,000. Your house rent owner is dependent on that income. A maid working in that, they are also dependent. All of this is a consumption cost. If you are a software engineer who is not from Hyderabad, came from elsewhere and residing in this, you are essentially spending a part of your salary for just surviving here. And people take that money and they survive. And that's why it is a consumption-led economy. Imagine a software engineer losing that job. The maid will lose, the house rent will be gone, the F&B industry guy will be gone, food and beverage industry. The Ola Uber taxi person will lose one client. So it is disrupted for that person. Imagine that for entire area, entire sector. There is a virtual collapse of a part of the city's economy. Why is that happening? Because look at the nature of AI. It is removing the repeatable tasks. So our focus should first go towards identifying what those sectors are, what are the jobs that will be impacted by this AI. There was a point in Indian industry where BPOs, business processing outsourcing units, basically call centers. Way back in early 2000s, people who spoke good English were offered very good salaries. 3.5, 4.5 lakhs for just speaking on calls way back in 2000, early 2000. Imagine, that's a lot of money at that point of time. The same jobs are now replaced by much more cheaper alternatives. Let's say, for example, Filipinos, like Philippines or let's say Vietnam, they also started learning English. Their economies grew. Maybe Nigeria. All you have to do is speak good English. That's all. Those jobs were gone. Didn't we adapt? Moving up the value chain ladder, just we spoke yesterday. So FDI, which was routed towards BPO industry, let's say, if this is an IT sector, what is considered a high paying job in 2000 slowly started vanishing. We moved up in the value ladder. Now we started towards IT export services. Now that is also reducing. We moved towards product development. Now that is also reducing. We moved towards products created in India servicing to the world. This category should increase. And till AI came into the picture, we were dependent on these companies creating a lot of jobs. The so-called unicorn startups. Your Zomatos, your Swiggis, your Cred. The so-called unicorn startups which were supplying jobs to thousands of talented youngsters. Those educated, talented youngsters are now in doldrums because these companies would now replace them with a AI agent which would work continuously. These people will sleep, they will eat, they will slow down. An AI agent just needs to be plugged in. It will keep on running 24/7. Efficiency, quickness, like you mentioned in the beginning, is no longer, a problem. What to do with the most educated people? Forget the masses. We don't have an answer. It's easy to say upskill and go where? Where should I upskill? Tell me what to do. I am ready to upskill. This is the question asked by the youth of this country. Not just this country, across the world. Go and ask the same Anthropic guy who created this cloud service which is taking away the jobs. He's like, I don't know if my job is there or not. Then why create it? Don't you think it would be nice to have a problem to be solved without creating a new problem? You make it efficient. Great. But don't replace and create a much larger problem. So this is the point where we are at now. So money is flowing into those sectors which is just focused on short-term returns. FDI is slowing down. You see a growth in FDI in this. Why am I taking so much time and telling all the stories? Because you have to interpret these facts. You are seeing a fundamental increase in the FDI inflows to North America because those are the places where you have your Anthropic, you have your Amazons, you have your OpenAI, Meta, your ChatGPT, your Microsoft, all the AI based companies, your Nvidia, the hardware as well as the software providers for the entire world are assembled and shipped to the world from US, and everybody is betting big on AI. Imagine a scenario that bubble bursts. Imagine a scenario where AI doesn't get enough returns. The entire story, as they think, proves to be false. That will be an asset bubble that will burst and will have a ripple effect across the world. As a country, we have to prepare for that eventuality too. How is it possible? By placing some efficient guardrails in our monetary system, which is what we discussed in RBI's monetary policy chapter. Every crisis is therefore an opportunity when you nullify the risks associated with it. Clear? So you understood this graph. See, you might ask, what about these? You can't say they will not get any money. There will still be countries which are efficiently functioning there. You will still make some money there. So some fund is going in those direction too. Take a look, for example, here. The quantum is very less, but there is a 75% increase in Africa. Why is that? Very little fraction. Because the depth of corporate markets in Africa is very narrow. But whatever companies are there, it's like Africa's story is like what India was at 91. Our stock market had very few efficient companies back then. Same is the case with Africa. If you invest there, you are going to make returns. That's why you will see returns there. If you want normalcy, go back to Africa and settle there. That's one way to migrate. Don't go to US, go to Africa. Trends in investment flows into India. Here you will see cross-border financial flows is the technical term used. And here it will go towards digital transformation. Everybody is saying AI, but we don't know how to use it. At least in the short term, companies need someone to hold their hands and start implementing AI workflows. That is the short term trend, and money will flow into that sector. You implement it properly, you will make some money, and the cycle will move. The the doom story will be postponed to the next year at least. It will give you some bandwidth to breathe. This is the larger story. Now take a look at this. Net FDI to India, gross inflows minus repatriation. The larger story that I want to say here, and returns on inward foreign direct investment, and this entire box that we are talking about. The long story short is that India, if you take a look at the FDI story, we'll start the story from 1991. I don't want to complicate this. I'll just simply say that when money started flowing into our country from 1991, what stopped the flow? To a certain extent, the very policies that opened it up. Corruption was the problem. You want to start a company, but you will have to manage so many Indian companies. Slowly that Indian officials. Slowly that story started changing. Efficiency in the processes and governance, single window clearances, land banks special economic zones, a slew of economic policies, latest one being production linked incentives. All of this came into the picture. Great. But are we, as you can see here, at the stage where we are making enough money out of the FDI that came from here? Let's say Tata, they made some money. Tata's, Reliance, they made some money. Are we reinvesting in our economy? Part of it, yes. Part of it, no. We are investing elsewhere. A company will operate only on one principle. What is that? Profit. Wherever you will find more profit, I will go there. That is their dharma. Like that's what they are supposed to do. They're not here for, just national service. If you can't keep your profitability and compete in the market, the families that are dependent on you will not survive. So you will see a trend there where net FDI in India is actually negative. It doesn't mean that money is not coming into India. Whatever money is coming in is again going out in the form of profits earned by our companies, and they are getting invested elsewhere. So essentially this is a good sign. If you see the stage by stage evolution, 91, 2000, 2010, 2025, if you see in multiple stages, till now we were like, please give us money. Now we have reached a stage where, okay, we have made some money, you give whatever you want, I will also give something that the globe requires. We started giving back to the world, which is a good sign. But since it is negative, it might concern the whole economic structure. But the very nature changes here, and the fact that you are able to provide back to the world will improve our respect and credibility across the world. This is the larger theme that you have to remember in India's FDI story. See here, turning success into sustainable growth. What is the success? We are now able to invest outside our country. What is the sustainability part? Moving from negative to positive territory. We need to make sure that we are efficient to invest, to attract more FDI into our country. And for this, we have to focus on factor market reforms, namely land, labor, capital, enterprise. We are working continuously on it. Now with the shift in the structure of our economy, a new skill set is required. New investment avenues are possible. So this year showcases where Indian economy will move towards. And it is in this context the services chapter becomes very important, which we'll discuss in the next class. So when you're talking about the services sector, long story short, let's say if this is the level of services with growth of AI, it is projected to move in the negative territory, slightly reduction in the short term. We can't let this happen, and we can't find out a alternative pathway. Till now the story is fine. We are saying that services contributed, but it might not remain like that. By the end of 2026, we might see a new reality. How, where, why, we are just waiting and watching. So let's see what will happen. In the next class, we'll take up the services sector and we'll go from there. I tried to tell this like a story so that you don't get lost in this graphs, etc. Whatever important points you have to focus on, you got it in the form of a story, contextual story. So please go back and read these paragraphs, and whatever discussion we have had today, it will make much more sense. Okay? That's it from my side. See you in the next class.